Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today, we're going to be talking about suicide and suicide prevention. I have Daisy Delmore on the show today, and she is a mental health professional, among other things. Get you something to drink, get you a snack, and come on back. I guess I should say good evening, Daisy, not good morning. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm good. It's been a busy, good day though.
I know you look good though. And I was just thinking when you got on, like this girl that had a very long day, and she come on the show looking like boom, she just got dressed.
It's been like this all day.
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't you just introduce yourself and then we'll just go from there.
So, as he said, I'm Daisy Delmore, and first and foremost, I just want to say that I just love the Lord. That's my first heart. Um, I am a pastor, um, and I currently work as a 988 director of operations, which is suicide prevention. Um, 988 is National Suicide Hotline. That is national. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I just want to say I'm married 25 years almost now. This coming October, the beginning of October. And I have four children. They're no longer little, but they're adults now. Um, one in college here in Alabama. Oh, yeah, I am in Birmingham, Alabama right now.
Okay. And you're also a mental health professional as well. You have a master's degree in what?
Yes. Yes, a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling.
Okay.
Um, yes,
So,
graduated as a therapist for over 20 years, and I'm
nice.
still working with children, adults, people with all kind of conditions, different areas. Working with the state corrections, in home therapists, um, church counseling. So many areas.
Yes.
Addictions counseling. I'm in that
Yes.
field. Um,
Okay. So, Daisy, what made you want to get in the mental health field?
So truly what made me want to get in the mental health field at a young age, I think I was like 16 in high school. And um, sadly to say, my brother had died um, at a young age, at 24 years old, from alcoholism. And um, when I was in school, I had a psychology teacher that was really good. And he talked about the mind and some of the conditions and what causes people to do what they do. And I was really curious about that. And so I really wanted to help. I kept feeling like nobody at 24 should die like that. I mean, I
Yeah.
had some mental health conditions because um, he didn't believe that he can get help for his alcoholism, and so he continued to drink until he died. And um, that's what made me want to get into this field because I wanted to help people, and I felt like that there got to be solutions. And so psychology kind of was the direction that um, I kind of went.
Yeah. So you did your undergrad in psychology and then your okay. Nice. Nice. So when you first graduated and got your master's and when you first started working in the field, how was that for you? Because I know being a therapist or a mental health professional, you do deal with a lot of different diagnoses, personalities, backgrounds. How was that for you coming straight out of college, being a mental health professional?
Um, well, when I got out of college, my first job was prevention specialist, and then I was a child and adolescent therapist. And so it was really rewarding and yet scary at the same time,
Yeah,
because here I am just coming out of school. I have a lot of head knowledge. I have some life knowledge. At that time, I was a single mom. I was struggling when, I had some areas in college that I dealt with suicide in high school.
yeah.
So I came in with some experience. Although it was scary, I really wanted to help people not to go through what I went through.
Hmm.
So child and adolescent therapists, prevention specialists, they all like fit right where I was.
Yeah.
And so it was just as if I was being set up for
Hmm.
a path.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think in my opinion, the most successful people in the mental health field are those who either have their own personal experience or they have a loved one that is connected with them that have personal experience because you come in there with some sort of personal background or experience or having to deal with that or have firsthand knowledge of that instead of just coming straight from the books.
Right.
You know,
I do think you got to have a heart for this field.
yeah,
Can't come in here just with even head knowledge, because you're going to find out how hard it really is, and then you might want to leave because it's so
right.
much more than what you thought, no matter what degrees you have. I found out as a director working with a team of people who are working with suicide prevention that, I got bachelor level, master level people, and yet they are struggling sometimes
Hmm.
because, it's more than what they learned in school.
Hmm.
They're, wondering if this is, something they could really do, because, they want to help people. And yet, so often you feel helpless,
Yeah,
especially when you're on a call, as far as a call center go, and you're trying to help somebody. And, it's a little different than even in person. At least in person, I remember times where I was counseling people and they were, um, you could read body language, you can,
yeah,
kind of listen to some of the cues and see if they were not comfortable. And it was uncomfortable for you if you didn't know how to help, but you could study at least to give them skills and tools. Where when you're dealing with suicide, people are in the worst state. You're
yeah,
dealing with crisis in that way. And so you don't have time to think about what was in your books.
right.
You have to really be right on. You have to know exactly what, you've learned. You got to come back to you. You got to be able to help people right where they are. You got to show your care and your concern. I believe when you show how much you care first, then people are more open to open up. Then you can give them the skills. You can
Hmm.
give them the support, the help that they need. But you really got to show how much you care first, and not just that. You got to show that you understand what they're going through.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's sharing what you've experienced or what have going on in your life. A lot of times at counsel they tell you, don't disclose too much. I remember that when I first was a therapist, um, in which I understand that, because you don't want, transference, which means you don't want, to really allowing what you've experienced to, be put on them, or what they experience be put on you. You kind of just want them to share what they're going through and be able to help them, not necessarily talking about you.
yeah, yeah. So, have you ever shared your personal experience with suicidal ideation being young with clients that it really came across in a successful way that it actually helped them?
Yes,
Mhm.
I definitely have. I think that it is, wisdom and when you do that and who you do that with.
Yeah.
Um, but I felt led to do that, on a couple of times in my career for sure. And I remember that one person said, it wasn't what you told me, like all the facts and the information they said it was the fact that you told me your story of how you wanted to die and how God, intervened and helped you, and you saw that you had a purpose. You saw that, you know, you felt encouraged that He had a plan for your life, and because of that, you know, you you were doing the things. You chose to say yes to God and not kill yourself, not harm
Right.
yourself longer. And I shared that with a woman who felt like she wanted to die because her loved ones were, all her kids were grown. She had
Yeah.
already, lived her life, and she just felt like, is it okay to die? Should
Yeah.
I just kill myself? And and when she, you know, checked back in with me, later, I did a safety plan with her and talked to her about, not killing herself, that she has a purpose, all that stuff, right? But when I checked back in with her, you know what she said? She said to me, it wasn't all what you said, it was your story.
Wow.
For sharing that. She said,
Yeah.
because if you would have ended your life, I would not be able to get the help today.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
would not be here talking to you, getting encouraged
Mm-hmm.
if you would have ended your life. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your purpose and not ending your life.
Yeah.
And it just threw me back because I would have never thought, out of all the things I said to her, that
Yeah.
was the one thing that she remembered that helped her say, I could do this. If she could do this and look at her life, then I can do this.
Right. Right. And so many people are hesitant about sharing their personal experience with suicide or any other type of mental health diagnoses and things like that, because of the stigma. It's really
Yeah.
because of the stigma and what people are going to think and say about them. How important is it for people to kind of break through that, especially when they're talking to someone who may be in an active suicidal crisis?
So I have experiences on the line with someone who is seriously needing help, suicidal. They were having physical symptoms. They were pulling their hair out. They were anxious. They were not eating. They were not sleeping. They thought they were just wanting to die and drive their car into, oncoming traffic if they left. And they were in a severe crisis. And yet, the one thing that when I said, oh, your first reaction, no matter who you are, if you're a therapist, a counselor, oh, let me call 911 right now.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I had to slow down because guess what? They didn't want 911 call. They were like,
Right.
no, no, because of not just the police, but they didn't want the community. Because I was like, well, what about the hospital? And they didn't want the community to know. They didn't
Right.
want this because of the stigma that's associated. And they said that. They said, I don't want the people around me to know what's going on with me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in my community. And so it is so important for them to break past that. So I
Yeah.
had to tell her, I said, look at your life. Who's important to you? You
Right.
have children. And this woman had children. And so I remember telling her, you have to make a choice. We only have a few, and it's up to you. But we want you to live. You want your kids to see you alive. And well, she just started crying, and she was like, yes, I do. I want that. And
Yeah.
I said, well, is that more important than than what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You're saying about people in the community and not knowing, I understand if you're worried about the police, but I don't understand, not getting help, you know, because so many people in the community have had bad experiences with police, so
Uh-huh.
they don't want the police to
Hmm.
come out. So there's other ways. There's crisis centers that are directly related to mental health
Right.
all over the states. And so I was able to help her get to a place of safety by
Yeah.
making sure she got to the crisis center. But she literally, the crisis center was 45 minutes from her, hour and a half from her house.
Wow.
She wanted to do that as opposed to going just to the hospital.
Yeah.
And so, but to break past that, I had to come to, you know, with her to reality check. Like,
Yeah.
what's more important?
Yeah.
And so it's very important to break through that, or else she would have sat there and died. Literally, she could have died from not eating, not sleeping, not, and it all triggered from her mental health,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to die, all of that,
Yeah.
physiological as well as emotional, you know, all
Yeah.
together was working against her.
Yeah. I have a very, very similar story. You know, the the people I work with, they ended up having a client like that. And I remember when the staff came and told me, they was like, Jesse, this person's in bad shape. She won't shower, she won't clean, she won't eat. Like it was nothing they can do. And this had went on for a couple of days. So finally, I said, well, do you guys need my support? They said, yes. I went over there to where this individual was. And so immediately when I went up in there, I saw exactly what they was talking about. And so I went in and tried to strategize and tried to talk to her. I mean, it was 100% hopelessness, 100% hopelessness. And so I asked her, I said, well, so I asked her probing questions. I said, well, are you contemplate doing any self-harm, harming yourself? She was like, well, no, she was just in a bad place. I just, don't want to live. She gave up. So I took the position of talk to her about her daughters and her grandchildren. Nothing, nothing. And so finally, about 3 or 4 days, I just went over there because I started really being concerned about this individual, So I finally went over there. I think it was like the fourth day I went over there, and I like you. I asked her, I said, "Well, what's important to you? What's important to you?" And she said to me, she said, every year about this time, she go into this bad space that she was in now, and she was telling me how like she really tried to break up out of there, blah blah blah. But she said, she wasn't strong enough. And so I started kind of just, talking to her and just really encouraging her and da da da. But it wouldn't budge, wouldn't budge. 2 days later, I remember the staff coming into my office extremely excited because she had decided to go and get some help for herself,
Mm,
and she's been on an upward spiral since then. I mean, totally different.
yeah.
Demeanor, outlook on life, everything is different. Everything is different. But she said, me and the two staff, those multiple visits, no multiple attempts, she said that we didn't give up on her. And she started saying like she didn't understand like why we were so persistent. We weren't aggressive, but we was persistent. And she said she thought to herself, let me give it a try. And I mean, it was just, I mean, amazing. And when I finally saw her after she got finished with treatment, I like a totally different person,
Mm.
total different person.
Well, and that sound like it just you really helped her see past her pain, see past what she
Yeah,
was. You saw more than what she saw, which gave her
right.
peace, it seemed like. So that is awesome. I love to hear those type of things when people are going through major crisis,
Yeah,
breakdowns. I think about the woman I was talking about. She told me at the end, and I was on like a little vacation, and I spent an hour, maybe 2 hours with her, and there was another lady right after that, same kind of similar situation,
yeah,
and she said, "Thank you so much
yeah. Wow.
spending the time, coming up with a plan with me, helping me through this." And it is those times that, you show how much you care, even no matter what circumstance. And you showing that when you kept going there and checking in
Yeah.
with her, talking to her. And that's what it's about. If you're going to
Hmm.
help anybody in this time that's dealing with crisis, suicide,
Yeah.
emotional distress, you got to show you care.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you know, Jesse, but my daughter suffers from mental health
Yeah.
crisis. She's been doing much better, but she has diagnosed with bipolar and
Yeah.
some form of schizophrenia where she's on medication.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember so many times of the stuff I went through with her. And it's
Yeah.
so hard. Like, nobody likes to talk about the realness behind mental illness. I have a
Yes.
cousin who has a
Yes.
son who has major schizophrenia. and he's adult, and she cries. I talk to her sometimes and encourage her and pray with her, but she is crying because she feels like he has, she's the only one there for him, but at the same time, she needs help
Right.
because he is very volatile at times, angry, frustrated, takes it out on her, does things just she should never have to go through as
Yeah.
with an adult child. Same thing. I went through so much in my daughter's teen years,
Mm.
afraid for her life,
Yeah.
afraid she was gonna do something, unimaginable, jumping out of cars, being aggressive, you know. And I am grateful that she got through that stage and
Yeah.
got through that illness by she helped she was able to self advocate. And I want to say that
Yeah.
advocacy is so important that we advocate for people with mental illness, but also that they know how to advocate for themselves.
Right.
And she used to say, "Mom, I know you praying for me. I know the word. I know church. I know. But the biggest thing that for her is being able to find out what helps her,
Right.
and
Yeah.
she sought out what would help her. And now she's seeing a counselor diligently. She's working. She's in college at the
Right.
university, um, and she takes care of herself. She self advocated to get in a program that was supportive and helpful. And now she's there. She respectful and
Yeah.
appreciative. All the things that I've been waiting on her to be. But
Yeah.
illness is real and it's hard because because people it's a silent thing that people like to keep silent of what they're suffering.
Yeah.
Family members are suffering because of
Yeah.
the stigma, because of the shame around it.
Hmm.
You know, it's shameful when your daughter or your child or your adult, family member does things that is unseemly.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about that or tell nobody what they've been through all night, staying up because they're afraid of their own child or they're afraid of
Yeah.
the child.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a very I appreciate you sharing that story too, because I know for those who watch this particular interview, I'm sure that they will get some type of um you know uh help out of that, because it is important to share a story. I have this is not even a family member, I'm gonna say a friend, because I don't think I just don't want them to know who I'm talking about. But I know somebody years ago, years ago, she moved to another state, started doing good. She had got all this money, millions and millions of dollars, just a lot of money. And she became very for lack of a better term, uppity. That's the best way I'm gonna describe it. And she started to be very harsh on her kids. Now, she's already had a very strong personality. So one day, her youngest son tried to get her attention, and she just didn't have time for him. She just was doing what she was doing, blah 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 blah. And he made several attempts to try to talk to her, and she was just upstairs cooking. She didn't want to be bothered. And then he told her, like, well, I'm gonna kill myself, just casually said that. She was just going back and forth with him, and he went downstairs in the basement and he hung himself. And that changed the dynamics of her life, because number one, she didn't take that threat seriously at all. Number two, as sometimes black folks are, people get, I'm busy, da, 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 and not realize that her son really needed her attention at that point in time, because whatever it is that he had to share with her, it was important to him. Not only did he do that, he wrote a little note before he did what he did. And now, I mean, she's still grieving, and this has been like maybe 8 years ago. And she's doing like suicide walk. She's acknowledging him every year. She's raising awareness. I mean, she is very heavy
That's
into
all.
the suicide prevention movement. But it took that and she has still dealing with grief, a lot of regrets and things like that. and she also speaks to parents specifically too about their children, about knowing the signs. Don't
Yes.
just take what your kids say lightly.
Yes.
But man, and that when I found out, that really touched my heart. That really, really, really touched my heart because I know how much she loved her children, but she just, that day was just a day that she just maybe didn't have time for him, you
Mm.
know.
Well, and
So,
I can see that bringing a lot of guilt, and and she had to, I'm sure, you know, let all that pain, all that go and put it into a positive sound like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I've met so many people who are advocating like that because of their child going through. I've been to conferences and met people,
yeah.
and I just came back from a suicide, an event that was geared for first responders and talking about suicide prevention and because they were saying how even first responders end up committing suicide because of the things that they've been going through,
Wow.
family members, veterans, and so this is fitting conversation because it's happening all over. I just came back from Africa, from Malawi, and that was the same topic I talked about there because 90% of the people in the room out of about 150, 90% raised their hand and said they knew somebody that committed suicide.
Wow.
So it is a real area of need in this world, in this, society
Wow.
as a whole.
Yeah.
And people need to know that they're not alone and that they're cared for, that there's people that have been through what they've been through or going through. When you may not have housing or food or enough money, people are killing themselves
Hmm.
when they can't, provide or when they're stressed out of relationships issue.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, people are finding a temporary solution,
Yes.
you know, a permanent, permanent, what they say is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yes.
that's why 988 is important, especially in the United States, because I thought about the person you talked about, the child. If they knew they were that distressed and they need somebody to talk to, that's what numbers like 988 is for. These are counselors, bachelor level,
Yeah.
that could talk to them, could give them resources. And that's a national line. It's there in California, you know,
Yeah.
and people could get the support they need. And it's only been 2 years out,
Yeah.
but it's supposed to be like a mental health line instead of like 911 is, first responders, emergency, ambulance, police. Well, we're supposed to be 988 when you call. It's supposed to be that support on the line before people get to the point, you know,
Yeah.
of suicide. So if they're having thoughts or if they're having a major crisis, the counselors are skilled to be able to talk to them, assess them, encourage them, help them find even more resources if they need a counselor, if they need a crisis center in their area.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So what are some signs that people can look out for or identify for people who are in a suicidal who are experiencing suicidal ideation? Now, what are some of the signs that people need to be looking out for?
And it can vary from person to person. I always say
Hmm.
family members, friends, people who you're around are your closest people that should be watching and knows when things are different. But some
Hmm.
some signs are, someone isolating more,
Hmm.
someone who's usually not aggressive, being more
Hmm.
aggressive. Um, looking at if they're giving away things, and
Hmm.
usually, they really like that, then you know that that was one of their favorite gifts and or things to have, and now they're giving it away. You find out, they're giving away things. Um, Also, if they are having a lot of family troubles or
Hmm.
a lot of relationship issues,
Yeah.
and they are one that take it to heart, like really emotional when they
Hmm.
break up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or someone who is a business person and loses a job, or
Hmm.
just a regular, if you used to losing jobs, it may not bother you. But if
Right.
you have been a provider and all of a sudden you lost your income, that could trigger emotional distress to a point where you might not want to live. So I always tell people, if somebody lost a job, if somebody had a major crisis in their life where maybe they broke up with in a relationship, maybe they, marriage is having issues, take the time to talk to them, take the time
Right.
to check in on them, because you just don't know if that might be someone who is actually thinking about suicide.
Yeah.
And those are some important things to really consider when we're around people. We're so busy doing our own things,
Yeah.
but do
Yeah.
we stop when we find out somebody actually had a crisis, or
Yeah.
there's somebody died? That's a big
Yeah.
one too. And if
Yes.
somebody close to grief can trigger people
Hmm.
to want to, like, why am I here? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a show years ago. It's been a while. And it was on people who lost a loved one to suicide. And that was a very interesting topic. And just to hear the guests kind of talk about their experience, they got into this field because they had lost a loved one, and so they lost a loved one to suicide in particular, and they wanted to provide some type of grief support to people who specifically lost a loved one to suicide. And I thought it was very interesting when I was talking with her before the interview, just getting her backstory, what she does, getting her story as she talked about other people. And some of the things that she talked about was what you just said, people who are left behind from someone that committed suicide. They start to feel guilty that they're actually still living and start to feel like, why not me? Why am I still here? And that can trigger, that can play mind games and really spark some in them if they don't get the help that they need. And they will start to entertain those thoughts you know and so this person, she does a phenomenal job with really providing some type of grief support to families or loved ones who have lost someone to suicide.
Awesome. I think about, recently, I was thinking about grief, and how to support people with grief. And I know, it's a such thing as called Grief Share, and
Yeah.
it's online, and you could, and it's based on community areas, and people who need to deal with their grief can be a part of these Grief Share groups. And I thought, wow, I know a lot of churches might have grief stuff, but to have community based grief share opportunities for people who are dealing with grief, is really awesome, because people need that support,
Yeah.
when they lose their loved one. I actually was just talking to, when I was at the event that I just left, about people who family members have committed suicide. Where's their support to even bury their loved ones?
Wow.
Like, there is no, I know in Alabama, and I was going to research other places, but there is no support for people who have lost loved ones to suicide.
Hmm.
Financial support, like, it's no foundation for that. And there is for homicide, there
Yeah.
is for rape, response. There is for other areas, but for suicide, there is no foundational support. Like, people that don't have a foundation to help people to bury their loved ones when they committed suicide. And we
Yeah.
already know that, a lot of times if they die, it's very like, how did they die? Because if the insurance finds out that it was suicide, a lot of times the family will not get
Yeah.
money towards to help. They won't get their, you know, whatever that they were supposed to receive from insurance. And so sometimes the police kind of like, you know, don't like to say that it was suicide right off, because they feel for the family members. And then the autopsy might have to show what it really was. But it's sad that they have to
Yeah.
worry about that.
Yeah.
And I do feel like it's not the family's fault necessarily that, you know, they should get support just like people who are, homicide victims or, you know, and so, you know, that's my thought because if the system was perfect, then it wouldn't be people commit suicide. It's family
Right.
are broken because of a lot of areas in society that are, families are broken because the society a lot of times is broken. People don't have things that they really feel like they need. And I know that's true mostly in like, I mean, we're privileged, but in third world countries
Right.
for sure
Yeah.
that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I I know one of the things that I do because I have a lot of different family members, all ages and things like that. And I know one of the things that um is the leading cause of adolescent young girls is suicide, out of any other class of people. And I thought about that as I was doing my research, and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, now why would these young girls at such a young age desire to commit suicide? And you think about it, all that's out here on social media, all the bullying, all the comparison to this person, that person, like it's just so much that they're competing with, and they don't feel enough. I actually have a niece who is extremely smart, just the full package. And she also deals with insecurity, self-image, and things like that. And I didn't find this out till maybe like a year and a half ago. Had no clue because she was just like, I mean, the girl is just doing it. And so I remember my sister telling me about how, my sister called me like at 3 or 4 in the morning one day, and she was just upset. My niece and my brother-in-law got into it and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And as my sister began to share with me all this stuff, and I was like, I had no clue all this stuff was going on with her. I mean, this girl tried to jump out the second story window, like she wanted to end it. And her father, which is my brother-in-law, didn't take her threat seriously at all, you know, until my nephew ran up there, kind of strong armed her and stopped her for jumping out of the window, you know. And so we have to be able to pay attention to our kids, or not just your kids, or like, just people in general, whether it's a family friend or a coworker, and really pay attention to what's going on with them because sometimes these people get in distress and it's too much for them. And the only way that they know how to deal with it is end it. When I did talk to my niece, cause I was like really fascinated by this whole situation, brother. And it may seem strange, but I'm like, why would she try to do that? So like over the next few days, I was talking to her and kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And she didn't feel loved. She said she didn't feel loved. Like I'm like, well, you got all the support. You like, I mean, girl got it going on. And through all of that, she did not feel loved. Now, think about that for a minute. Now, what would make somebody, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
When for young people, a lot of times it doesn't just start with I don't want to live. It's depression, it's
Yes,
anxiety,
exactly.
it's triggering the symptoms of
Yes,
live, and a lot
yes.
of the depression is coming from, you're right, social media. I was just the mental health commissioner when I went to the conference was just talking about this area, what you're talking about, the area where kids and youth are wanting to end their lives and they're going through mental health crisis. And she was saying the same thing, that it's social media platforms that are triggering this. And she was saying that it's some things that parents should start young at, like not allowing their kids to have phones that are smartphones, and
Mm-hmm.
giving them the flip phones until they get to a certain age, and allowing them turn off the TVs, and
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like, oh, well, we don't want to do all that. But the truth is there's so much stimulus, so much things going in there, going in when they already are developing, have low self esteem,
Hmm.
trying to figure out their own who they are. And now you have a whole world of social media telling you who you should be,
Yes.
what you should be like, what you should look like, if they like you or not, the likes and the loves, and so you don't feel
Yeah.
love because you ain't getting no loves on
Yeah.
TikTok, whereas you got a whole family of love.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it is important that, and those things could trigger depression. You know, um, people, go through when they see, comparing themselves, especially young people compare themselves to someone else.
Yeah.
They don't have what other people have. Then they must not, you know, be loved if they don't have two parents, or if they
Yeah.
don't have, the things materially that other people have. So it really does play a big role. And I agree that here she was the smartest person ever and have all the love and support, and yet don't feel loved. Like, that
Uh-huh.
is amazing to me. But her brain, chemically, the depression was there
Yeah.
already. And no matter what you said, that's what she was getting, you know.
Hmm. And my niece has a lot of siblings from my sister and her dad. Like a lot, just a lot. She's one that, she's been spoiled because she's the only girl from my sister. My sister got four boys and one girl, and she's the youngest. So she's been spoiled by just spoiled, spoiled, spoiled. And I remember, and this clicked for me the night that I was talking with her, because I remember I had talked to her a while back. She wanted to join a sorority. And of course I had to talk to her, and I it just didn't dawn on me, and I ended up kind of shutting that down because I got my own personal beliefs about that. But she was telling me that's the reason why she wanted to join a sorority, because she didn't feel loved, she didn't feel supported, and she was like, Uncle Jesse, I know that was all in my head, because like everybody do a lot for me. Like she get all of that. Like all of that, And but that goes to show, even like the young kids, the youngsters, they wanna, they wanna be rich, or they want to be rappers, they want to have all this power and fame. But even some of the people who had all this money, power, and fame, Robin Williams is one, Phyllis Hyman, like these are people, famous people that are well established, who commit suicide. So we know it's not the fame or the money and the power that is the answer or the key to the happiness. Because if that was true, why would these people that got all of what these people trying to get off themselves, so to speak?
But and you can look at, why did they turn to alcohol and all these
Yeah,
that trigger depression, and then their life is, going a whole nother way. We know so many people died from drug overdoses,
yeah,
which is, to me, suicidal if you're taking medications that potentially could kill you,
yeah,
because of your, if it's an addiction, that's one thing, but a lot of times, it's self-medicating because of, the things you're going through in your life.
yeah,
Um, so I do think that suicide has to stay like in the forefront. People have to talk about it so that stigma is pushed
hmm,
away. 988 came about 2 years ago, which is to say, hey, suicide is real. We know crisis is real. Now you have somebody to talk to. The more people are talking about it, like your show, like this is awesome because it's bringing light to the truth that people are
yeah,
struggling,
hmm,
and it's okay that they're not alone. It's okay that they feel depressed and they feel like this, but knowing that they can get the help that they need. There's
yeah,
resources in every community
uh-huh. That's
that
right.
they can get, and that's the key, is to getting them the resources, putting
Hmm.
resources out there so
Yeah,
that they know, if I need help, here it is, I can get the help.
yeah,
And it's confidential. Like 98 is confidential. It's free. You don't even have to tell them your name. You don't have to give them your address. You could
yeah,
just talk. You
yeah,
know, tell them the real. I think
yeah,
about being in Africa when I was. They were coming up to pray, and I was saying, that the interpreter was saying, telling them what is it that you need prayer for, and they were just real. They were just telling me everything that they were dealing with. Some,
Yeah.
loss of jobs. I feel like I just don't want to live anymore, or
Yeah.
my daughter ran off, and I need finances, or else I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might as well just run away. It's just so many areas that people are struggling with,
Yeah.
and they don't feel like they have the care or the support.
Yeah.
This is a
Well,
big way to stop people from
yeah.
home.
Yeah. I like the fact that you talked about just be real and be upfront and transparent. Because I think when people start to operate in their mindset, that is definitely the start of someone getting the help and support they need. Because a lot of times, people, especially with Black folks, I mean, we're taught to be strong. We got this. We don't need no help. Don't tell people our business. And you could be a hot mess on the inside and falling apart.
Yep.
But that's I mean, to me, that's how I was taught growing up, and that's a lie. Don't ask people for nothing. You don't depend on nobody, and your life can be going down the hill, and your mental state is very fragile. So I don't necessarily adopt that way of thinking, especially in my own life, because we're living in a different time, it's a different culture, especially with these youth. These youth really, 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 really need our guidance, our support, and for the adults that may be having a hard time connecting with the youth, they
Yeah.
also need that support you know and so I think it's people like us that's on the forefront that's talking about mental health, depression, suicide. The prevention part is very important too. I know there's myth around, well, don't ask somebody if they trying to harm themselves because you may put it in their mind. No. H- how else is she gonna be able to find out?
You cannot put anything in no one's mind that's not already there
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
asking them the question, are they feeling okay? Are they having thoughts of suicide? That's the first three questions we ask on the
Yeah.
on 98.
Yeah.
Have you thought about harming yourself today? Are you, in the last 3 days, have you thought
Yeah.
about it? Because the truth is, people won't tell you unless you ask.
Right.
And if they don't want to tell you, then they're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
But if the more you talk to them and they see you care, then they will. But you're
Yeah.
right, something about youth. I think about the event I went to. It was a youth. She's 16 years old that started this whole first responders mental health, suicide prevention
Yeah.
um, event and fundraiser. It was a fundraiser, and she started 16 years old. She went through mental health, went through suicidal thoughts, her whole story about that, and then she felt like, what, I know I'm not the only one. I
Right.
think first responder shared a story or something about what he went through, and that's how his whole started. But I thought, wow, how brave of her, 16 years old, and then she got a whole organization um, with my sticker. It's called um, Keeping Kindness. And
Yeah.
I say that because she created Keeping Kindness because she feel like just one kind word to someone could change their whole outlook. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so now she got an organization around doing a walk with, concerning mental health, and a whole school,
Wow.
a whole department of kids that are supporting mental health, which is a big deal. Now, if we can get, African American schools to, adopt, mental health is real. It's
Yeah.
okay. You don't have to be ashamed.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It's
And in
great.
terms of our culture, a lot of us have a lot of mental health challenges. It's unfortunate the way a lot of us were raised to ignore the signs. Pretty much what it is. You're ignoring the signs. I mean, I know people who uh, I've met, in a suicidal state. I've met somebody not too long ago, and they was saying that they was 2 months before that they was trying to off themselves, kill themselves, and it was just like, whoa, but you never know. You never know. This individual, they was isolating themselves, just off, no accountability, nobody know what's going on with them. And I just kind of run across like it's just we have to do better as a community, and really put forth our best. And I think for me, telling personal stories is way more effective than trying to worry about what somebody gonna think and say about you. Because you can have it all together, and guess what? People gonna still have something to say about you. You know.
I love the fact that when I went to the conference, a news reporter for one of the popular news, WBRC here, she, a weather newscaster, she was there and she shared her story about mental illness and drug addiction
Hmm.
as a college student. And she was so transparent. Like for
Hmm.
her to be on the news every day on the Weather Channel, like I would have never thought she would have been like that. Like she was just raw. She just
Yeah.
told it all.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
said that this is what helps people. Yes, she could feel kind of vulnerable because she don't know us, and but she shared with a whole crowd of those for mental health awareness event. And she says she goes, she do, she if anybody call, she'll share, come and share her story. But it's those stories that make the difference in people's lives to make them feel like, you know what, I can do that. I can go and ask for help and tell somebody about
Hmm.
what I'm going through.
Oh yeah.
And I really appreciated her being so transparent
Yeah.
because it's not a lot of people who that is, to be honest. People like to pretend that everything is all good all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The truth is, every day we can all be falling apart without some grace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because life is not always easy. We know that.
Yeah.
And that's why I encourage my team members, the ones who are on the line, self care. We have
Yeah.
to care for ourselves. You can't care for nobody else if you're not taking care of yourself first.
Hmm.
So we got to take care of ourselves.
Hmm.
I encourage self care so that we can be ready to help those. We can be more watchful. We can be more discerning. We can be more, encouraging. We won't be so engaged and not really outward engaged.
Yeah.
I encouraged when I was in Africa that, because they were saying sometimes there's no sign, you
Yeah.
know. And I thought about that statement, and maybe visibly it's not no sign. And in those cases, okay, we can let ourselves off the hook if it really was no sign. But I guarantee you, there was somebody that he was close to or she was
Hmm.
close to that they missed something.
Uh-huh.
Even if it's not something, it may not be, you may not be the person that catch things, but the key is to be more aware of those who are around. If, like I said, if they had a loss, if they
Yeah.
lost a job, if they had a major divorce or a situation that caused chaos in their home, and you know this about them, then
Right.
go see about them.
Right.
It's okay. Just go ask them how they're doing. Go check in with them. But
Hmm.
if you just be like, oh, I'm sticking to my own life, I'm just not going to worry
Yeah.
about what nobody else is doing, then you got people dying left and right
Yeah.
around you because you
Hmm.
don't even know what's going on with people's lives.
Yep.
And you got to be a person to care.
Right.
This was teaching the mentor group leaders, and that don't just care about your life. In other words,
Yeah.
start to go outward
Yeah.
outward, and it's not always easy because we're consumed by our needs a lot of times.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's happening all over, Jesse. This is a really big area right now in the United States, even with suicide. Now we know it's always, homicide, but the world, because of what's happening, we see what's happening in politics, we see what's happening in social media, we see
Yeah.
what's happening. All these things is triggering people to go through depression, more anxiety,
Yeah.
suicide.
Yeah. Well, Daisy, time always flies when we're having fun.
I know.
But I really do enjoy talking with you on and off screen. You have no, you do. You have a wealth of knowledge. You have a lot of experience, and so I'm sure that you are definitely doing a great work, and you will continue to do great work. And we will continue to do other shows together because I know there's a lot more that we can talk about. But I do want to thank you for just sharing your taking the time out to share your experience, the information about suicide and prevention and your own personal experience. So thank you so much for that. And we would definitely connect again soon, okay?
All right. Thank you guys. Thank you. Also.
Okay. And
Until
that's
next
it.
time.
All
Huh?
right. Now I got to do my closing.
Oh,
And that's it for this edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this show, if you would like a DVD copy of this show, or if you would like to be a guest on our show, please dial 916 366 4600. Thank you.